What's up guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, checking out the brand new iPhone SE. This is Apple's most affordable iPhone, retailing for $399 or $499 in 16 or 64 gig capacity. Now this sits at the bottom of the iPhone lineup, replacing the 5S, but essentially this is a upgrade of the 5S. We have the same body and 4-inch screen, but we get some of the internal specs of an iPhone 6S. Now we don't have everything from the iPhone 6S like 3D Touch or even a barometer, but we have most of the core specs, and we'll talk about the differences later in this video. But first, let's get to the unboxing. So getting to the unboxing, the packaging is designed very similar to the newer iPhone 6S. We have the iPhone sort of embossed into the cover of the box. We also have our color highlighted here, which in this case is rose gold. And of course, you can pick this up in gold, silver, or space gray. So getting into the box, first thing we have right away is the iPhone SE on the top, covered in plastic. We just have to peel these tabs along the bottom to peel off the plastic in one go. Now obviously the design here is very familiar. This is the same as the iPhone 5S, much more angular than we're used to seeing in modern smartphones, but I actually really like it. Of course, rose gold is a new color here, and that really stands out on this design. Now before we take a close look at the phone, let's get to the accessories. First up, we have a packet containing our paperwork and a SIM ejection tool. The paperwork is pretty straightforward. We have some tips and tricks, warranty information, in addition to a set of Apple stickers, which is not color matched to the iPhone like you might see with the MacBook. Now below that, we have all of our neatly arranged accessories, and they're pretty familiar. We have a set of earpods in a carrying case, and those earpods do include a remote control and microphone. We also get our 5-watt wall adapter in addition to a USB to Lightning cable. So getting back to the phone, let's take a close look at the design of the hardware. Now this looks like an iPhone 5S, but there are a few refinements. One of them is an inset Apple logo on the back. This used to be polished into the aluminum frame, but this time it's a separate component that's been added. We also have the iPhone SE branding on the back. And although the design of the body hasn't changed, the chamfered edges are now matte instead of polished, so that mirrored finish is gone. So once again, on the front, we have a 4-inch LCD IPS display with a resolution of 1136 by 640, good for 326 ppi. Now this is basically the same display we've had since the 5S, so it has a contrast ratio of 800 to 1. That falls well short of the 1300 to 1 or 1400 to 1 of the newer iPhones. This display also lacks the dual domain pixels, so the off-axis viewing angles aren't quite as good. Toward the top, we have an earpiece along with our ambient light sensor and proximity sensor right next to it. And above that, we still have a 1.2 megapixel FaceTime HD camera, good for 720p video. So this did not pick up the 5 megapixel camera from the iPhone 6S. In fact, it's basically the same camera we've had since the iPhone 5S with an f2.4 aperture instead of the f2.2 aperture that launched with the iPhone 6. But it does pick up a Retina flash, which uses the backlight of the display as a fill light for your selfies. Now returning from the iPhone 5S is Touch ID. This is the first generation variety, not the second generation, so it's not quite as fast as the iPhone 6S or 6S Plus, but it works the same. And this now works with Apple Pay thanks to NFC and the secure element, which is integrated into the back of the iPhone. Now along the back, we'll find a new 12 megapixel iSight camera, the same one that's from the iPhone 6S. So that gets us an f2.2 aperture, 4K video recording, deep trench isolation for good low light performance, and focus pixels for continuous and smooth autofocusing. Now this does not feature optical image stabilization like the iPhone 6S Plus, but does feature software stabilization. Next to that, we have one of the new and improved microphones in addition to a True Tone LED flash, which is able to combine the color of 2 LED flashes in order to produce a more natural fill light. But one of my favorite aspects here is that the camera system is completely flush mounted, so nothing is protruding here, just like the original 5S. Now toward the bottom edge, we have a very familiar setup. We have our headphone jack, a microphone, which again is new and improved, in addition to our Lightning connector at the center, and lastly on the right side we have a speaker. Now toward the top edge, we'll find our sleep-wake power button. Toward the left edge, we'll find our individual volume controls in addition to our mute switch. And on the right side, we'll find our nano SIM tray. The iPhone SE also picks up the new radios from the iPhone 6S and includes much faster LTE and Wi-Fi, along with support for Wi-Fi calling and more international LTE bands. We also gain Bluetooth 4.2 and Voice over LTE. The new iSight camera also picks up some new tricks from the 6S. That includes Live Photo, which records 3-second video clips alongside a still image. Now you can preview the Live Photo by swiping through the image, but without 3D Touch, you simply tap and hold on the image to get the full video clip. Slow motion has also been bumped up to 250 140 frames per second, panoramas are now up to 63 megapixels, and we now have 1080p at 60 frames per second as an option. Another new trick comes courtesy of the M9 Motion coprocessor, which is the wireless Hey Siri command. So this means this phone is always listening to the wake up command, whether it's plugged into a power source or not, and it's trained to your voice, so it only responds to you. This is actually one of my favorite features of the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus. I use it all the time, so you can use this whether the phone is locked or not. The SE is also launching with iOS 9.3, and this phone does get most of those new features, including night shift for blue light reduction in the evening and password protection in the Notes app. The SE is powered by Apple's A9 64-bit CPU, which also powers the 6S. So this delivers an impressive Geekbench score and around 2500 on the single-core score and around 4400 on the multi-core score. This makes it one of the most powerful phones at any price today. This more than doubles the A7 performance in the iPhone 5S it's replacing. It's also a significant step ahead of the iPhone 6 that sits above the SE in the iPhone hierarchy. And as expected, the SE delivers very similar performance to the iPhone 6S and the 6S Plus. Performance on this phone is fantastic. We have 2 gigs of RAM to work with and all that processing power behind the A9. So day-to-day operation is excellent. You have lots of room for multitasking, and because this phone has a lower resolution display, you have all this processing power to push less pixels, so it feels faster than even the iPhone 6S or 6S Plus. The GPU is also 3 times faster than the iPhone 5S, so gaming performance on this phone is excellent. Now, in terms of camera quality, this is the top-tier iSight camera from the iPhone 6S, so the results are what we expected it to be. The only thing is lacking is optical image stabilization, which the 6S Plus has. But images come out clear and sharp with good exposure and detail, good color saturation, and it's able to find focus really quickly thanks to those focus pixels. Now, in terms of low-light images, again, we have deep trench isolation built into the sensor, which means we have less crosstalk across the pixels for less interference. So low-light images have a good amount of detail without harsh color noise. The only issue I find with the iPhone's low-light performance is that it tends to be a little green or washed out. It seems to lack color depth. The LED flash also works well in certain situations. Again, it uses the right color balance for the shot, so it's not too harsh or washed out. Now, in terms of video recording, once again, we have 4K available, but you will have to go to settings to turn this on. You can't do it from the app. So 4K looks fantastic on this phone. Unfortunately, it doesn't have optical image stabilization, which would help here, but we do have software stabilization. It does a really good job here, making sure the scene is nice and smooth. And again, with focus pixels, it's able to find the right focus point smoothly without being too disruptive. So the focus point doesn't hunt around unnaturally and is pretty quick. Apple says they've also made significant improvements to the battery life of the iPhone SE, and it really stands out as one of the best battery performers among the iPhone lineup. So in terms of raw performance, we're getting about 4 hours of on-screen time at maximum brightness with the phone set to airplane mode. Now, if you compare this to my 3-year-old iPhone 5S, this doubles the performance, but of course, a 3-year-old phone has a 3-year-old battery. But if you compare this to the iPhone 6S, this is an hour and a half better in terms of on-screen time, and it's even better than the iPhone 6S Plus. Now, according to Apple's battery usage data, you should see similar performance to the iPhone 6 Plus and 6S Plus in many key areas. In some areas, it actually beats it. But of course, for the best battery life overall, you probably want to stick with the Plus, but the SE definitely gets better battery life than the 6 or 6S. Now, for $39, you can pick up Apple's leather case for the iPhone SE. These are basically identical to the iPhone 5S cases I've looked at previously. We just have fewer color options. We just get midnight blue and black. The case is pretty familiar. It's got a very nice leather texture on the back, and on the inside, we have sort of a matching microfiber material that cushions the phone. The phone is completely protected along the outside and along the edges of the glass. And of course, there are appropriate cutouts for all the ports and the camera along the back. Now, because the iPhone SE is identical to the iPhone 5S, all those existing cases will continue to work on the SE. Now, just to give you an idea of how this compares to the other iPhones, obviously the 4-inch phone is much smaller than the 4.7-inch or 5.5-inch options from the upgraded models. Obviously, there's a big difference here in terms of design as well. We have hard corners and edges as opposed to the rounded glass and metal design of the iPhone 6 and 6S. Now, personally, I prefer the look of the SE. I like the fact that it's mostly metal. You don't have those antenna stripes across the back, which are plastic. Instead, you have these glass panels along the back, and with a mostly metal frame, I think this is a really good-looking phone and really stands the test of time, although it doesn't feel as nice in the hand without those rounded continuous surfaces like we get with the newer iPhones. In conclusion, the iPhone SE is basically what we expected it to be, a smaller and cheaper variant of the iPhone 6S with flagship specs and performance. It It delivers excellent performance in all benchmarks, and the iSight camera is one of the best at any size or budget. Now, my only gripe is the very outdated FaceTime HD camera, but I don't really miss 3D Touch or even the second-gen Touch ID sensor, which is sometimes a little too quick for its own good, especially if you just want to peek at your lock screen notifications. But ultimately, I think it's really nice that Apple's cheaper iPhone has most of the capabilities of their flagship phones. This definitely makes it one of the most powerful phones of its size. However, if you're used to larger displays, it's really hard to go back to something as small as the SE. So this is probably best for new iPhone users or those looking for the cheapest entry point into the iPhone family. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for me in this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up to let me know, and I'll see you again in the next video.